All right, we'll call the meeting to order. This meeting has been moved up from Thursday due to the weather. And we have a quorum. So again, I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then the invocation. Mr. Cordero, would you lead us in the pledge? And then Mr. Smith, will you do the invocation for us?
Sure.
After.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Smith is bringing us the invocation.
Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Amen.
All right, thank you. All right, we need to adopt the agenda. Do we have a motion for any?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to, before we have an adoption of the agenda, to move 6.3 to action item 8.5. And also, if it needs to be voted on separately, I'll be more than glad to do so. But then also I'd like to move 6.6 to action item 8.6 and to add to that the suspension of 2450 at that time policy. Does that need to be, Mr. McPherson, separate, since I'm moving two
So
information items, or should that be done individually? Or
you can, as far as the amending of the agenda, you can go ahead and propose that. And then as far as the suspension of the rules regarding the readings, we can deal with that once we get to those items on the agenda.
Okay, that's the motion I have then to make that change.
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Smith has made a motion to approve the agenda with these changes. Ms. Burns has made a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
All right, Mr. Smith has made a motion.
Second.
Mr. Cordero has seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. And do we have any public comments that are signed up? Anyone by phone or? All right. And information agenda. We'll start with item 6.1, the instructional framework. Please.
Hey, good morning, board. This is Brad, and I appreciate you allowing me to call in. Certainly do appreciate that. The first item, just want to, I know Dr. Sawyer is getting set up here to speak, but I want to kind of introduce it. Over the past year or so, we've been able to work with a few key items when considering academic progress in our district, and many of them you know about already. And as you're aware, we spent considerable time and effort acquiring our new curriculum, renewing our accreditation, and in this case, developing an instructional framework. The instructional framework really is a structured approach to planning and delivering instruction, and it provides really a cohesive set of guidelines, principles, and strategies for our educators. When you dig down into it, this cohesive structure, a well-defined structure that integrates just the various components of teaching and learning. It incorporates evidence-based practices and strategies. And certainly, while working with best practices for student learning, it's also allows our teachers the autonomy, because the instructional framework was really made to be flexible enough to accommodate different teaching styles and different student needs. And so really what it all boils down to is no matter where you go in our district, when you walk into a classroom, you should see best practices in each and every classroom. And what's really nice about this instructional framework is this isn't something that we bought off the shelf or anything like that. This was made by our team and our stakeholders. Input from teachers, administrators, students, parents. We're all a part of this. And so, we are really excited to really go over this and produce this for our district as we get into this new school year and start working with our teachers. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Dr. Sawyer, who will go through the instructional framework in a lot more detail. So Dr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Dr. Breedlove. So what I'd like to do is just take you through a look at this. I'm going to skip over some of this because we already heard it. I gave you a book, and the book is actually going to every teacher in our district will get a copy of the instructional framework as we go out to communication, because it's really important that we have a consistent language, a common language in the classroom of what our expectations are, that we set those high expectations for students and teachers. We promote higher order thinking and rigor, and that the instructional framework gives us a guide for what type of professional learning our staff needs in moving forward. One of the things we started meeting on the instructional framework last September, and this was a year-long process of putting this together, as Dr. Breedlove said, with all the stakeholders involved. And they really felt like our instructional framework had to be all-encompassing, and it had to be something that leaders and teachers have common, consistent language on what we do and what our expectations are. So what you'll see is the very first thing we did was develop basically what we consider our buckets. This is our roadmap. And these were the 5 themes that emerged from all of the meetings and all of the data that we had, that we collected. And the 5 themes are empowering students and families, accountability, environment, culture, and of course, instructional delivery. So what we did then, another round of meetings, was we divided it up into each of those things, and then we talked about what does it look like as a leader? And then also, what does it look like in the classroom as a teacher? So we divided that up because if we're going to hold teachers accountable in certain places, we want to make sure that we also hold leaders accountable as well. So I'm not going to go over all of the points of it because you do have a copy, but I just want to hit some high points on here. So empowering students and families, one of the biggest things that stood out in the instructional framework meetings was communication. Making sure that we foster two-way communication with families, and that we clearly communicate our expectations with students, with families, with educators across the board, from the building level and the teacher level. So you'll see this on both sides, what effective leaders will do, and then also what effective teachers will do to empower our students and families. It's really about building partnerships with them, focusing on our mission, vision, and goals as well. So effective teachers, again, consistent communication with students and families, ongoing feedback on their learning goals, where are they on a weekly basis in their learning, engaging students and families in academic progress. No parent should go without knowing where their students are in their progress in education. And then sharing positive achievements. It's so important to make sure that we don't just call parents on the negative, we call parents on the positive, and we share things that are happening as well. And that was a high point from all of the meetings, especially with parents. They don't want to just hear when something bad is happening, they want to hear when something good is happening as well. So then we unpacked it even more, and you'll see this in your book, and it's what does it look like? So if we're going to ask you to communicate, and if we're going to ask you to engage with families, we also want to know what that's going to look like. So ensuring that teachers are using Apogee rooms, communicating with parents weekly, updating student grades in Infinite Campus on a weekly basis in alignment with our policy, ensuring that all families are connected to Infinite Campus, and then sharing student work and achievement with families as well. So you'll see this as we go through each of the 5 buckets. The next one is accountability. And this, you'll see a lot of the same things, engaging families, teachers and students setting goals for their learning path, being accountable for their learning, using data to drive instruction and drive the goals within the building as well. Also the professional learning for staff. And then effective teachers will provide opportunities for students to set goals for their learning, take ownership of their learning, use data to drive what's happening in the classroom, plan instruction effectively, which looks like a week's of lesson plans, right, in advance. So teachers know what they're teaching next week, this week. So they're always prepared. And cultivate culture of accountability for learning. So again, what it looks like is very similar, making sure that we are accountable, we hold weekly PLCs, we set goals, participate in professional learning communities, and then again, share achievements with families. So you'll see some commonalities as we go through this. Environment is all about creating a collaborative environment for teaching and learning, promoting an environment that has flexible spaces, that is inclusive of all students, ensuring that the school buildings are welcoming, clean, and safe for learning, stimulating, challenging, and fostering academic risk-taking. And when you go look at teachers, it's very much in alignment with that, making sure that they have time to collaborate, that they create an environment in their classrooms that is safe and clean for learning, that their classroom environment is student-centered, collaborative, and inclusive, and that they maintain consistent procedures and routines in their classrooms. And what does that look like? Making sure that leaders allocate the time that's needed for the collaboration, for the PLCs, and that teachers actively participate. And that we create a process for monitoring consistency across the building and develop those consistent classroom procedures. So what you see in one classroom shouldn't really be anything different than what you should see in another as far as consistency, processes, procedures. Then you'll see culture. Again, effective leaders, foster positive relationships with all stakeholders, positive activities and outcomes, hold high expectations, demonstrate pride in Pender County schools. That was another big one with educators. They want to see that pride in Pender County schools. And then teachers, building relationships with students and families, emphasizing the importance of academics, attendance, positive behavior, having high expectations for all students, and make learning fun and engaging in the classroom. And then what that looks like is creating an environment where families and staff members feel welcoming in a school building. Promoting professional developments that's focused on individual staff needs. Organizing and facilitating events that connect our community, such as family nights, cultural fairs, community service projects, those kinds of things. And then the last one is really about the instructional delivery. Promoting a culture that integrates reading, writing, thinking, and talking every day. Teachers felt really, really, really strongly about ensuring that we have those opportunities available for students every single day. That we use common formative and summative assessments. We use data-driven practices in our schools. We provide families with the knowledge and resources about school events and academic opportunities. That we always have ongoing training and support, and model purposeful use of technology. And then again, in alignment with what teachers will do, providing opportunities for the gradual release of responsibility for students, using technology for their learning experiences, engaging with inquiry-based, engaging, differentiated, and relevant strategies in the classroom, reflecting on their teaching and learning, and being able to use the data to drive what's happening in their classrooms. And then again, what does that look like? And really it's communicating learning objectives, making sure that we have district common assessments that are aligned to standards, using research-based strategies for instruction, and using technology where appropriate to increase student engagement and collaboration. Any questions? It's a lot. Sorry. So communication plan is really important moving forward. Making sure that our teachers know, making sure our administrators know, making sure that it becomes a common language. So if you walk into a classroom, these are the tenets that we stand as far as what's important in instruction and what it looks like in a classroom. And that's it.
All right. 6.2, advanced teaching roles.
I think Dr. Bula was gonna
Yes.
talk at the beginning.
Yeah, yes, thanks, Dr. Sawyer, for that presentation. Our next item, advanced teaching roles. I've spoken with the board and especially about coaches in our classroom. As you remember, in our budget ask, we talked about the number one request out of our schools and principals was their own coach, instructional coach in their building. And certainly, we always want to try and do the best that we can do with our budget and being able to provide those requested needs. Advanced teaching roles is a way for Pender County schools to increase the number of coaches that we have without increasing the total number of coaches. We are fortunate that there is a grant that is called Advanced Teaching Roles, and we are working to apply for that grant. And what, in essence, it allows us to do is provide additional coaches in certain schools by allowing teachers, advanced teachers, to be those coaches. And working out a schedule and a plan for our best teachers in our schools to be able to go in and help support beginning teachers or teachers that may be struggling with instructional programming. And so I will turn it back over to Dr. Sawyer to kind of go through some of the elements of advanced teaching roles to give you a better idea of what this looks like inside of our school. Dr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Dr. Breedlove, and I think Kevin's gonna kind of bounce in and help me out here as well. So advanced teaching roles is really about keeping our quality teachers and providing them with resources and allowing them to be master teachers, allowing them to train other teachers, work with other teachers, really with the idea of improving student outcomes. It affords us in this grant opportunity to enhance the compensation that we provide teachers because we can apply for extra money for compensation, for professional growth and development. So it's providing professional development for the master teacher, but also providing professional learning for those that may need extra additional support. Why do we want this? Well, our teacher attrition in Pender County is at 18%. We are employing more provisionally certified and new teachers that are replacing those that are leaving. And our best teachers often move to leadership. And sometimes even our best teachers don't want to move into a leadership position. They want leadership within their buildings. So this provides an opportunity to give teachers leadership within their buildings. The advanced teaching roles was advertised, they sent an RFP out for this teacher compensation model on June 14th. It provides 3 years of funding, a year for us to work and develop plans, professional development, transition, and implement the plan in year 1. It is currently used in 26 school districts across North Carolina. And the General Assembly has increased funding for this program over the last 8 years to support innovative approaches to teacher leadership and retaining teachers. So the responsibilities of the advanced roles, in the grant statute, it gives us 5 ways that we can use advanced teachers. We can use them teaching an increased number of students. We can use them as a advanced teacher that conducts observations and provides critical feedback. Becoming a classroom lead teacher among a group of teachers, and being the teacher of record for those students that are in those classes. Leading school-wide effort to implement data-driven instructional models that include blended learning, digital resources, improvement, and those kind of things. And then also completing training that certifies the teacher as an in-house provider of professional development. So as we process through writing this grant, we have to choose at least one of these areas that we're going to focus on with our advanced teachers. So our proposal is developing a unique Pender County Schools teacher compensation model. In collaboration with the school and teacher, our plan is to implement it in 3 phases, where we step into year 1 with 3 schools. And then in year 2, we bring on 7 more schools. So by the end of year 3, we've got advanced teaching roles in all of our schools that are actually supporting professional development, supporting coaching across the board. There's also a connection here to the TA to teacher pilot. Do you want to talk about that, Kevin?
Sure. So we've had this in place for quite a while now. I think we have 8 teachers, TAs currently in the program. We've actually hired, I believe, 4 of those TAs to be teachers. They've finished this pathway that they're working on, and this is a pretty big selling point. It fits into our initiative of growing your own leadership within the district, which is something we've tried to do over the years. It also, another component of that is the AP Academy that we've started to grow principals out of APs, and also a new program we're starting this year that allows for classroom teachers to take the next step to become an AP. So it kind of fits into that model that we've already established, with the overall goal is to continue to look for strong leaders in our district, which we have a ton of, and move them into either advanced teaching roles or AP roles or whatever down the road. So.
Thank you. So what could this look like in Pender County? It could look several different ways, and this is where we're at in the process of the grant writing right now with RTI. So this graphic depicts a teacher, an advanced teacher in the middle, that's actually supporting 2 different schools. And there's a classroom excellence teacher that they're supporting, and that classroom excellent teacher actually supports the other teachers. So you're building your capacity through the coaching model, using an advanced teacher that coaches and also co-teaches with the teachers of excellence, and provides support in the other classes as well. So that's one model. Works very well in elementary and middle grades especially in small schools. So when you've got a really small school, like we have a couple of smaller schools, it's nice to have one person that could go between 2 buildings.
Yeah, and if you look at the slide that Dr. Sawyer has up, you can see that there's different levels of teachers in each school. So you might have a beginning teacher or a provisional teacher that's part of that group, and perhaps an apprentice educator as well. But you'll also have the advanced leadership teacher as part of that team, to be able to help grow those individuals. Another set of supports for our beginning teachers as they take on the next step of becoming a fully licensed educator.
The second application works really well at secondary because you typically have a larger team that you work with, whether it's a mathematics team or an ELA team. You've got your adult leadership teacher, right, your advanced teacher. They coach, they co-teach, they model a couple of days a week in each of these classrooms. Essentially, they spend 4 days a week in a classroom and 1 day a week on their own training, so they can train and work with the teachers. You still have your classroom excellence teacher, and again, due to transition and things like that, you will always have your apprentice educators, provisionally licensed teachers as well, possibly BTs, in this kind of model as well. The classroom excellence teacher in this model typically will support between 2 to 4 other teachers on a team of teachers. So our next steps, we're currently working with RTI, and we're working on finishing the proposal. The proposal has to be submitted by August 16th. Within the proposal, we're looking at professional development monies for subs and things like that to actually cover what we're planning on doing and how we're actually moving around an advanced teacher in those classes. The state is projecting that they're going to grant the awards by January of 2025. From January till June, essentially, we will work with RTI in developing our actual model, what that model looks like in Pender County, using several other different things, and really, how does it work? What schools do we want to do this in? What teachers? There will be an application process for teachers that want to apply to be an advanced teaching role. In order to do that, you have to have, good student growth and good achievement and things like that. So there's several factors that come into play. We'll be communicating out the model to staff in the spring as well, because we want teachers to apply, and we're going to open it to all teachers within those selected buildings, those first 3 selected buildings. And then implementation will start in year 1 in the fall of 2025. Any questions?
We'll be able to update you after the grant cycle goes in. We won't know for sure that we have received the grant until, as Dr. Sawyer said, mid-year. But hopefully, we will receive it and we'll update the board on that.
I have a couple questions. So one of the most common pieces of feedback I've received from teachers is they're constrained for time, whether it's, putting grades in Power School, things of that nature. And so with that in mind, I was just wondering, under this model, especially for the advanced teacher that's doing the mentoring, what is maybe the weekly, monthly time commitment that would be added on to their normal duties to participate in this program?
So the advanced teacher would take a kind of a coaching role, where they wouldn't necessarily be doing the grading, as they would be supporting those teachers that they're working with that are doing that piece. They would spend 4 days in the classroom co-teaching with those teachers, supporting those teachers. All of our buildings have built PLCs into their schedules to kind of support that. There would be.
Forgive me, what's a PLC?
Oh, professional learning community.
Okay, thank you.
Where we give the opportunity for them to meet, collaborate, and those kind of things. But there is, due to the way the grant is written, there is an additional time commitment on the advanced teacher, which is where the supplements from the state come in, because typically there is a additional supplement for that teacher that does the advanced teacher, because it is more work.
Right, but can you quantify the time commitment? I guess that was the crux of my question. And it's okay if you can't answer it right now. I think
Yeah,
certainly maybe up front, because I'm assuming you'll solicit volunteers for the program.
Yeah.
I think that would be a key thing to disclose to the volunteer community that you're soliciting from. Hey, by the way, this means you're going to spend an extra 2-3 hours a week.
Right.
And, we all have lives.
We don't actually know the amount of time until we finish the grant,
Right,
award the grant, and then we actually start developing what it looks
Right.
like in Pender County. At that point in time, when we kind of come back to you guys and have the model well-rounded, we'll be able to kind of tell you that.
okay.
Yeah.
You understand where I'm coming from, right?
I imagine it's gonna anywhere between 2 to 4 hours a week.
Okay, that's what I was guessing, so.
Yeah, and they say typically they do 4 days in the classroom and 1 day where they can do their own professional learning. And that 1 day that they can do their own professional learning kind of does support giving them the time they need to do that. So we will try to make sure that it's something that's doable, because if it's too much time, it won't work.
Right.
It's gotta be.
Yeah, it'd be
something that's
counterproductive.
doable. Yeah.
When does the grant expire? So you're essentially going to pay the advanced teacher a supplement. Did I hear that right? Okay, so they're going to get extra stipend on top of whatever their normal salary is for participating in this program.
Yes, sir.
when does the grant expire?
3 years,
And would it be renewable?
yes.
Okay, so there's no potential that we would lose the grant funding and then have to make up for the balance out of local funds?
Yep, so we just found out in the last meeting that we had with RTI, the grant now has a 3-year extension, that if you get the first 3 years, the next 3 years is guaranteed. We have to still apply for that, but the next 3 years is guaranteed. We can apply for more to expand it out, but what we need to sustain the program is guaranteed for the following 3.
Okay, thank you.
Part of the, doctor. I just promoted you.
I don't know if I consider it promotion. I'm just kidding.
Mr. Cordero, part of the grant itself is, provides sustainability for the district. And that's written into the grant as well. So, as Dr. Sawyer mentioned, there's a couple of, funding avenues out there, and Brandon may be able to speak to this as well, that are supplementary to the grant itself to be able to continue this down the road.
The local match.
Yeah.
Right, okay. The presentation stated that we are at an attrition rate of 18%. I was just wondering, do you have any data on how that compares to our neighbors?
Yes, we were, this past year, we actually improved quite a bit. As you can see, our open positions are way less than what they were last year.
Sorry, I'll
In
restate the
terms of-
question. I was
yeah,
wondering if
in
how that
terms of
compares.
how it compares to other districts around
Yeah, like
us.
Onslow, Brunswick, New Hanover, what is there? So we're at 18%. What are they at? Just curious.
I don't want to give you an exact number, but we're relatively close.
Okay.
They during the ESSERS time, when the ESSERS bonuses were used, we were able to track teachers that would leave one district to go to another for essentially a sign-on bonus. We've starting to see those come back around in a cycle. Typically, they were Brunswick, New Hanover, ourselves, sometimes Onslow. But the attractiveness of a sign-on bonus led to a lot of attrition across the state.
So I interpret your answer to mean that we're not much higher or much lower as far as attrition than our neighbors.
Correct.
And 18% is shouldn't be concerning.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what schools were chosen for the first year?
So we haven't decided yet.
Okay.
So we want to, once we finish writing the grant and awarded the grant, we're going out to principals. Because you have to have the buy-in across the board. So we want to make sure the principals in the building have the buy-in, that we can then manage that as far as the teachers that we're going to allow to apply, right? All teachers in those buildings will be able to apply. So we've bounced around the idea of doing some elementary and middle in the first year, but we're not clear yet.
Okay. And I would also recommend just balancing it by geographic region as well, so that way, one side of the county doesn't feel, because there's a bonus involved, right? Or not a bonus, I guess, an additional stipend, additional money in your paycheck, that we're spreading that, as equally as we can.
Yes, yeah, and there is the opportunity to, if we select a building, our first thought was to really select buildings that are high needs buildings first, and get this off the ground in those buildings. And then in year 2, add those 7 buildings, and then that would spread it out more across the county. But like I said, we haven't really decided yet.
Last question, why was the presentation not in our agenda packet?
I thought you did. I
Okay.
got it yesterday.
Got it.
I can make a copy
Well,
for you.
my concern is not necessarily for us, but for the public. So, we post them in a link online, social media, so people can review these materials and see what we're doing on their behalf, right? So if we could maybe update the link with this presentation, that way, if anybody wants to go look at it, they'll be able to have the same information that we have. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah, he has it, so we'll update it. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
All right, 6.4, alternative to suspension program update.
Yeah, the next 2 items, ladies and gentlemen, they kind of go together. So I'll just kind of bring your attention to some work that Leanne, or Ms. Radabaugh, and myself, and some other folks have been working on along with the principals to formulate what we're calling a second chance program. And essentially what that does is it provides a bridge between a shorter term suspension and long-term suspension. For instance, a child that was suspended for 5 days or more could take advantage of this, go to a centralized location, continue to work through their studies while being outside of the school that they were assigned to. This is not a complete program yet. We're still working through the details of it. But we did want to bring this to your attention so that you would know that we are working on it. Very similar to the advanced teaching roles presentation, just something that we're working on. And I think our timeline, Ms. Radabah, is September, October? Yeah. So you can see some more details there, and we'll be able to come back and update the board whenever possible. Okay? Any questions about that? Along with that, part of the information that was shared in 6.4 is a draft of the behavior matrix. This is our principals are being included in this as well, along with APs and other members of our team. This has already changed a little bit. Yes, it has. Yeah. So we wanted to get this out to you so you could see it for now as a draft version. So it's in your packet. Some of the consequence continuums have changed a little bit. I'll draw your attention, Dr. Breela, feel free to jump in here if you want to the bullying, harassment, days of suspension for a student that has been engaged in bullying behavior. The suspension days are pretty significant, 6 to 10 for those. Now, do keep in mind that the definition of bullying is a repetitive use of bullying tactics. That term is often used in society as a one-time thing. So we'll have to make sure that we are accurate in our assessments, and Ms. Radabah and her teams are working through this to be able to identify kind of a strategy and a checkpoint or checklist to identify true bullying through the definition that exists in the policy, which we'll discuss later. Keeping in mind this is a draft for now, but happy to answer any questions that you guys have about it at the moment. Very good. Our next item, Mr. Overton, if you'd like to come up. Mr. Overton put together a very informative bus driver orientation meeting. I was able to slip out the back door before he put me on the spot to speak, but Dr. Breela, several other people were there. I just wanted to give him a few minutes to update the board on how that went.
Good morning. Thank y'all for having me. So July 31st at Hyde Trask, we had our meeting. I want to thank Mr. Tony Hudson for allowing us to have the conference, or to have the room there. We had roughly about 140 staff members, most of them being bus drivers and safety assistants, of course. Dr. Breedlove welcomed us with the importance of safety and just what the importance of our bus drivers are. From day to day, you know, we want to remind them that they're the first face seen in the morning, the last one in the evening, and they are a very important role in the education process for our students. We had some principals, some assistant principals that were available, and we had a lot going on that day that kind of came up with Infinite Campus and things we're working through, but everyone that could attend was there. We had some that stuck around to really look at the entire meeting and gave some good feedback. So that was great moving forward. Our finance team was there to explain our pay raise, and we thank you all for that very much. And to go over any kind of financial procedures and the pay schedule moving forward for 24-25. We had our DMV officers there that train our bus drivers just to give some DMV updates and any changes we may be looking forward to. And Ms. Wilson showed up for any HR kind of Q&A just to be available if we had any questions and to remind who she is and where she is and how to contact her. It was a good networking time for our drivers. It was good for me. As a new director, I was able to meet some at our drivers banquet, but we have a lot of drivers here, so it was good to put some faces with some names and, like I say, do some good networking with our administrators as well as far as from a bus driver standpoint. So we're looking forward to a good year. I'll just give you a few numbers. We ended last year with 23 established double routes. Some of these are definitely necessary just because they are so short and it's difficult to find drivers that are going to run a very short run. As far as from an income standpoint, right now we're figuring we're roughly plus or minus about 12 double routes that we could probably put a full-time driver in or a permanent driver in if we could have them. So we're looking about 12 drivers short right now, give or take a few, to do some adjusting. But like I say, thank you for having me. Looking forward to a good year. I think we had a good meeting. Hopefully I made a good first impression. So that's where we are. We're ready to get going for 24 and 25.
I have a question if you're up for a question.
I'll try.
How do we stand on filling the positions for our bus drivers? Are we still in need of bringing in more? I mean, how does that look with your staff?
We are. I think it's safe to say we'll always be looking for drivers. We do have a pool that we're working into that have been through our class. They're still in the process of getting licenses. I think the tropical storm may put a slow on us for a few days, but we have some we're actually hoping to get licensed prior to the start in late August. So hopefully we'll fill a few more. The driver shortage is definitely real, and it's nationwide, so it's not just us. But yes, we encourage all. We encourage all, and we're looking for a few more right now to get started, and definitely welcome any more.
How do you stand with your fleet? Are you comfortable with the buses that you currently have in your fleet? Are we? I know with clean energy buses with diesel and other energy-wise, are we getting any new buses? Are they being exchanged out, or how does that work?
We are. We received 2 new buses this year. They just happen to be lift buses, handicap accessible buses. Basically, the bus replacement schedule is a 20-year process, so the state requires us to run them out. We maintain them to the best of our ability. I'm a firm believer of putting new parts on instead of Band-Aids, so we can make that 20-year mark, but we put the mileage on them, and that's how we replace them. So our fleet's in good shape. Like I say, 2 new buses this year. Look forward to getting some newer ones next year and keep moving forward.
At the last meeting that we had in person, the contract for electric buses was terminated. Have you had opportunity to find out if there's any kind of repercussion for that?
Right now, I do not think there will be. I know all of them were able to be allocated to another district, so that's definitely a big help for us. Mr. Taylor or Dr. Breedlove may be able to speak more on the contract side or any kind of repercussions we may have. I have not been notified of any, but I do know all 3 of them were able to be allocated somewhere else.
Mr. McPherson, would you take that?
I would happy to. So I had a conversation with the General Counsel's Office for DPI and the State Board of Education, and they did not make me aware of any consequences of any kind at this time. With the reallocation of those buses to anyone else, there would presumptively be no penalty of any kind. But there was also no penalty written into the MOU that you guys approved between, so it would be really hard. Now, they're your state agency. They can always do anything if they want to, but generally speaking, if they've been reallocated, what's the point?
Right.
But that's my understanding at this time after speaking with the,
So
yes, sir.
is there a standard way that they decide, okay, we've got 100 buses this year that we're gonna replace, statewide?
Mm-hmm.
How do they determine, like, what system gets what? Or do you have to request it if you got something that's worn out?
So,
It's probably a combination of all of the above, isn't it?
well, yeah, you mean as far as the green energy type buses?
No, just
No.
just
Oh,
a
just
school.
buses it's a scale, yeah. So you have to run them for a minimum 20 years or 150,000 miles.
Whichever comes first.
We can replace them at 16 years at 300,000 miles. And from 16 to 20, we can replace them if they hit the 250 mark. So there's a scale. They'll project them every year, DPI will, and then they'll notify us. And of course, we keep a record of it, but realistically, it's when they notify us that they're due for replacement and they project the last year's mileage, that's basically how we figure on how many. I can project what's coming and I can kind of see, but until DPI reaches out, it basically is determined by them.
Okay. I just wonder if they have any way to retaliate for, being mad at us or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's
I don't
pretty,
see one.
no, sir. No, sir.
I don't think so. Plus, I don't think, to be candid with you, I don't think they care that much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Kevin Harrison and his team in transportation have too many other spinning plates to worry about this particular one. Now, I will say, if you apply for another grant of some sort for green energy buses in the future, I mean, they certainly will take into account any prior actions. But at the same time, I genuinely do not believe that they're the
So they
type.
could be arbitrary about the way they decide something?
No. They can just look at past behavior. I don't necessarily know that that's arbitrary. I just think they.
Right.
I mean, as long as I'm here, if they want to be arbitrary, we'll just sue them. I mean, it's easy.
I just don't see them being arbitrary. I just don't think they care. Does that make sense?
I wish there was a way that they could have to prove things, but, because, I mean, they're a public place, so. But I think that's the biggest question that some people have in their minds is retaliation, which should never be the case, but it always could be. So,
I had stepped out to the restroom when that vote, there was not a motion on the floor when we terminated that, and I just would ask my colleagues something when we're terminating contracts, and the amount of time it took for me to step out and step back in, all of that was done. I've never missed a meeting and missed a vote, so I've just asked that it be considered next time we vote on something. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And can we call for a 5-minute recess?
Yep, be fine. Everybody good?
1.5, 1, 0, on.
You on? All right. That brings us to the consent agenda. Item 7.1
Mr. Chair, I make
through
a motion to,
7:15.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, Mr. Smith has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cordero has made a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous. Thank you. And action agenda, 8.1, strategic plan contract proposal.
I think Dr. Breedlove wanted to start again.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to get the mute button off. I was talking and you weren't able to hear me, so I apologize for that. With our strategic plan, and this kind of goes along with some of the work that we have already discussed this session with our, of course, our instructional framework, and some of the work that we've done around Cognia accreditation. But when we look at our strategic plan, Pender County Schools has not had a strategic plan in quite a while. And so certainly giving direction, looking at our vision, looking at our mission and goals for the district will be instrumental in supporting our district in all phases of what we do on a daily basis, whether that's academic, whether it's cultural, health and safety, activities, co-curricular, extracurricular activities. We all need goals and we all need direction in working. And so looking at this and working with multiple vendors to try and select a vendor, we bring to you today a request for moving forward on the next 5 years and as we develop a strategic plan for Pender County Schools over the course of this year. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Sawyer to kind of go through this strategic plan and our selection of RTI in order to support this work. So Dr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Dr. Breedlove. So I just wanted to go over a little bit about what the process is going to look like. And, you know, Dr. Breedlove talked a little bit about why we do this, but developing a strategic plan builds a shared set of core values, establishes common goals, prioritizes and aligns the work, really holds ourselves accountable to students and families as well, and reflects the will of our community and that shared vision that we developed together. Our approach is really three-pronged, right? It's in development with the community. It's definitely a collaborative process. And really we want to know, what do we want for our students and how do we want to achieve it together? We will have a steering committee, and that steering committee kind of like runs point on the work with the principal, some teachers, some leadership, parents, community members. And then we have focus groups. And focus groups are made of parents, students, principals, teachers, community stakeholders, everyone's voice. And then we also gather additional data through questionnaires. We look at outcome data, we look at research. So we really do take a holistic approach at what that's going to look like. And we really want to know, what do you want out of Pender County Schools? So in this process, we'll be developing a 5-year strategic plan from 2025 to 2030, developing our core values, developing a new mission and vision, revising what we had or moving forward with something different. We typically will look at 4 to 5 strategic areas because you don't want to have too many, but you also don't want to have too small amount. So we typically do 4 to 5 areas. And then we look at detailed actions in each of those areas, actions that we can take to move the needle. And then we always have metrics. So making sure that you've got a dashboard that's transparent for your community so they can see where you're at and they can see all of the data that you're collecting as well. So we're looking at a 3-phase process. In phase 1, we're looking at starting in September, in the fall of 2024, compiling and reviewing all of our data, especially the accreditation process, because we collected a lot of data through the accreditation. Making sure that we conduct focus groups, town halls, focus groups with students, focus groups with parents, focus groups with community members that may not be parents, right? Making sure that you get everyone's voice heard. Analyzing all that data from the preliminary interviews and focus groups and beginning to identify the themes, right? What are those buckets of priorities that we want to have, those 4 to 5 areas? Then in phase 2, we develop the goals, again, with the help of the community, with the help of parents and the steering committee. Solicit their input, refine those themes, and then draft an initial strategic plan. What are the buckets? What are the goals, right? What is our vision, our mission? What are our core values? And then really start itemizing out what are the actions that we want to take moving forward in order to, and stepping those actions out, right, per year, so we know what we're doing per year. It's easier to hold yourself accountable. Then phase 3 is our finalization, making the draft of the strategic plan, finalizing it, getting approval by the board, right, and then communicating it out to all of our stakeholders. Making sure that, similar to the instructional framework, that it becomes the thing that we're going to stand by for the next 5 years. Yeah. So we're going to ground our work in the data, including but not limited to all of that stuff, right? We're looking at test scores, we're looking at course enrollment, programming, teacher turnover, principal turnover, teacher working condition survey, discipline data, culture data, student surveys, attendance, a whole look at all of the data that's possible. We want to make sure that when we develop metrics, they're metrics that we can measure and metrics that we can actually get data from. So we want to make sure that we have a very long list.
Yeah, part of the data is, if you see the surveys, some of the other data we'll collect will also be qualitative data as well, talking with small groups, things of that nature. So it's not just numbers. We're looking at actual boots on the ground conversations with individuals that have stake in our district.
Yeah.
Dr. Sawyer, how are you going to prioritize this list?
So the data here, we're not going to prioritize it at all.
Really?
We're just going to collect it all. Part of partnering with RTI to do this work is that they do a lot of this for you. It's a lot when you do a strategic plan because you don't want to miss any piece of data. And a lot of this data we already have and we've already collected through the process of our accreditation, which should be final this month. So all of that stuff that we did already, some of this data we already have, right? And some of it we'll have to collect as we go through the fall.
So the stuff that you already have, what are we doing with it?
Well, we've used it to create theories of action through our accreditation process, which will be in along with this as well. We've used it to create some action steps for moving forward with Cognia through the accreditation process. So all of those data points will merge together and become one.
Okay.
So the strategic plan essentially will be a one-pager that can be shared out with a vision and a mission, the future that we imagine for our students, and the mission, what do we want to achieve in the future. And then we'll itemize out our priorities as well. And then we will have those core values and shared beliefs that guide us. The actual strategic plan will probably be longer than a one-pager, because you want to have something that's easily shareable with the community and parents, but then you also want to have something that kind of itemizes out your action steps and your metrics that you're going to be measuring through the process. So all of your priorities will have action steps, and then all of those action steps will have metrics and measures that we will hold ourselves accountable for throughout the year. Some of them will be yearly measures, some of them might be quarterly measures. It just depends on what type of metric that we're going to decide on to use for those. And that's how we'll measure our success. So, priority one, developed mindful of listening to all the voices in the community, using plain language and avoiding jargon, keeping students and families at the center of our work, and focusing on multiple clear measures for success, for accountability. And then we have the actions, and then we have the measures, right? We want to make sure that whatever we put in place has the voice of Pender County Schools and what we want for our students. So we recommend that the board approve our contract with RTI, not to exceed $75,000, to partner with us to be able to do the work over the next year of developing our 5-year strategic plan.
You stated 75,000, the document stated 80 and change. Is there a reason for the
We gave
difference?
a budget of 75,000. They gave us an estimate. We did solicit 3 different companies to make, and we went through the process of going through all of them on what they could offer and all of that. We have a partnership already with RTI, so it was very seamless for us to partner with them for this. But we're looking at budgeting at not to exceed 75,000.
Okay, so it's just a non-binding estimate, and they're gonna go hourly.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned focus groups and a lot of other collaboration, which I think is good. I just wanted to ask, to what extent are people that are not employees of the school system gonna be involved in this plan?
So that's where RTI is going to help us develop those community ones, because we want to make sure we have stuff in our buildings, but I've been through a strategic planning process in the past, and if you don't go out to the community to get the input, sometimes you don't get people that want to come in. So we want to make sure that we go out, we get business partners, and really, we want to get everybody's voice. So our goal is to get as many voices as we can from the community, from, parents and all stakeholders.
Okay. Yeah, I would highly encourage you to get, members of the Board of County Commissioners, Planning Board, Pender County government specifically, because they allocate us resources. They decide what facilities we get
Yeah.
in our capital allocation. And so I think any plan that doesn't meaningfully include their feedback is incomplete.
Yep, I agree.
Thank you.
How many other districts is the group that we're partnering with for this program? How many other districts are they currently doing? Do you know?
I don't know if they're currently working with districts on strategic plans, but they have done a lot with the state, and they have done a lot in Wake County. They've done most recently, what were the other ones?
So this is something very familiar to them. This is in
Yes.
their, okay.
Very familiar.
They're the ones we're working with in writing the grant, the Advanced Teaching Roles Grant.
Yes.
And as we started looking for vendors, it naturally fell, we started talking about strategic planning. They're like, we do this, let's talk about it. So that was the third one that we looked at.
I make a motion to approve the strategic plan contract proposal as presented.
Second.
in Meeting.
All right, Mr. Smith has made a motion, Mr. Cordero has seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous, thank you. 8.2, parking fees budget.
Make a motion to table this to September 10th.
All right, Mr. Springer has made a motion to table this. Do we have a second?
I'll second, and if during discussion, if you could elaborate just a little bit, please. Mr. Springer.
So with the parking fees, I would like to see staff go ahead and budget for the parking lot attendant's salary to go onto a line item budget, just like any other employee.
All right. We got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
May I ask a question?
Yep.
Sure.
So you are wanting, the parking lot attendant to be paid out of regular
As a
Pender
paper,
County funds and not out of the parking lot fees or the parking fees?
yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Could I ask why?
We're double charging the taxpayer.
Because at that point, we could, would there be plans to put parking lot attendants over at Pender High and Heidi Trask also?
I'm not sure what the future looks like.
Well, I
Ms.
hope
Briggs-
you can understand why I would be asking the question.
Yeah, what, are you asking because you feel if it's coming out of the employee salaries budget line item that would require us to have a Pender High
It
parking
would be a
attendant?
discussion.
Well, I mean, if they need one, I think we should, if they need one, just like Topsail High needed one, I don't think we should deny them the opportunity. I
Well,
don't know if
and
that
like I
answers-
said, I'm just trying to bring it up for discussion. I was just trying to figure out where we're going with this.
So,
Because actually, in the last meeting when we talked about this, I had made the comment that I thought it did even out because Topsail High is our largest, has our largest parking lot, and that is about to grow. So yes, I do agree that they definitely need a parking attendant out there. Like I said, I'm just trying to figure out where we're going with this.
so I would ask, what if this parking lot attendant got hurt on school grounds? Who's gonna cover this? This is gonna be a
Well,
liability
he's
toward us.
still a Pender County employee.
So it would need to be Pender County paying for this, right? Instead of double charging the taxpayer.
Mr. Springer, I think the idea behind this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the money that's paid by students,
Is coming
what
out
is it,
of-
30 grand a year, something like that? About maybe 28, Ms. Nellens, close enough, right? That should go to maybe capital improvements like resurfacing the parking lot and other things, not just going to pay an employee's salary.
Yep, and a slush fund. Yep.
I'd like to speak to this. I'm gonna be voting against that motion, and the reason why is because we have three of the principals have taken time. I'm not saying I'm against what you're saying, but they've taken time with this storm and weather that we're having. They're here to make a presentation. I like to hear the presentation, what they have. We can either, after hearing it, we can either vote it up or down, but I do feel like to respect their time, because they probably have stuff they could be doing right now other than sitting here at a board meeting listening to us. So I'm just letting you know I'll have to vote no on that particular motion.
Yeah, I'd be willing to entertain the presentations that they have.
Thank you for bringing that up. You would withdraw your motion?
Oh, yeah, I withdraw my motion.
Thank you, sir. Well, let's let the presentations roll then, if that's all right, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So pursuant to 3625 and 3625R, I've asked the principals of the high schools to come up. Let Mr. Paquette go first, since he's chomping at the bit to get up here.
All right, we're good? Mr. Chair, Board, Superintendent, wherever you are, hope you're well and safe. Staff, community, I am Nick Paquette for some who may be online, and we've not had a chance to meet. Proud Principal of Pender High School. Back again with hopefully a presentation you have, I believe, in the packet, to present to you our current estimations and budget streams for what have historically been our most flexible dollars to respond to human need at the school building. Our numbers, some may be reviewing, I'm not sure exactly where you are in the process, from last year's presentation to this year, try to hone in on more accuracy as more information's become available. Essentially, over projection on last year based on information had using the reality of parking passes that we did sell in school year 23-24 to be a better indicator of the amount of funds potentially we would raise in following policy to charge the $50 per parking fee. Many of these things are fairly routine in the work that we've done, so there are a lot of similarities. Of course, the passes themselves are here, continuing to honor and assist our ROTC programs with many of their events that they do are not necessarily funded in the contract they have. With government support, when they go to the Best of Best, et cetera, when we have students who are unable to pay the fees. They do a great job of fundraising and doing all that they can to make those happen, but inevitably there comes a time in a school year where they need some support. Continuing to build our brand, marketing however we possibly can. A lot of that happens in the form of various items for parents and for students at open houses, which are coming up. We're looking forward to that. As well as CTE connection camps, freshman orientation, and other events throughout the year where we invite people into our space and try to make them feel welcome, and of course, leave them with some souvenir where they're out there branding for us in a positive way. Senior activities is always a special time for seniors. Shout out to all seniors who will be coming in for their last first day of school coming up. We always like to, of course, put some pomp and circumstance and support behind that group to see them off well with a variety of activities. And then, of course, the gauntlet of testing does require a variety of expenditures, batteries, pencils, water, snacks, et cetera, as we want to make sure kids feel as confident and ready and prepared to do their very best to represent Pender High School. Floating through these by line, I should have said that. I assumed you picked up on that. Homecoming activities and the various events, inevitably, in order to make an event a powerful moment, does take a little bit of additional pomp and circumstances. And so, again, continuing our traditions of various homecoming events. Last year, which I know we're not getting into last year, but we did launch our first, I think in a long time, I don't know if ever, I don't know the whole history, but hosted a winter dance, which was phenomenal in every possible way, and appreciate all the support. And some of that support came from these funds and fees, in addition to students purchasing a ticket to offset those costs. Moving towards, this is really stolen, but not stolen for no reason, but I had the opportunity in instructional rounds this past year to attend many of the walks. One of those walks that stood out as an area for us attached to our data was the use of essentially whiteboards as rotation stations within math classrooms that was on display at Topsail High School. Shout out to them, who are doing phenomenal work, an area that we continue to need to grow in to get students essentially up, active, and involved together, thinking through thinking. That is the work that we do, and so we've allocated a fund there. If I had the Topsail parking budget, this next line item would be where I increase significantly, but for now it's satisfactory. We were able to launch, first in many years, an academic award ceremony for every grade level, be able to recognize those with attendance greatness, attendance improvements, A/B honor roll, A honor roll, et cetera. And award medallions, plaques, et cetera. So this fund is instrumental into the celebration of the good work that is happening, and then inevitably trying to do our best to carry over enough money, right, to be solvent and prepare for school year 25-26. I will pause there, and as always, as promised, give you my best answer, unvetted, to any question that you may have for me at Pender High School. Hearing none, I invite my dear friend in the work, Tony Hudson. I think he'll be representing Trask next. Is that right? Come on, Tom.
Good morning, Board Chair, Board members. Dr. Breedlove, if you're still on the phone. I draw your attention to primarily the line items that you will see on our budget. Ms. Adelise, our treasurer, is actually updating our price at $50, but I want to draw your attention to the price at $40 in particular, mainly because that's more the average price of what the parking passes are going to go for. Even based on our policy, that price of $50 is going to be prorated. Most of our kids are not going to buy that parking pass in the first month. So this $40 budget is more in line with what it's going to look like. But the line items you'll see are what's most important. We're going to spend our money on our freshman transition, which is happening now. somewhat. Hopefully we can reschedule and spend a lot more of these funds, but we want to make sure we acclimate our students, especially our ninth grade students, to Heidi Trask High School as thoroughly and as quickly as possible. We're also going to do the same with our students that are being promoted from 11th to 12th grade, our senior transition. Just making sure they have the time to get acclimated, make sure their classes and schedules are up to date. Anything we can do to make sure we celebrate them for the entire school year. Another big ticket item for us is going to be our flex period and enrichment program. Every day at Heidi Trask High School, for a minimum of 40 minutes per day, we're going to have a period where we're going to allow our students to get their tutoring, club time, anything our teachers can do extra for their kids during that time, and that has to be paid for in some way, shape, or form. Supplies are going to be needed, whether it be to support the clubs or just get extra materials to support the tutoring aspects of things. We also include in there our student tutoring as well. We will still try to come out of our budget and allow all of our student tutors to earn a minimum of $500 per semester for tutoring their classmates. You'll also see in those line items the training snacks, the test training snacks and things for our staff. When we do our own personal test training for our staff members, you'll notice our spirit events, a minimum of about 7 spirit events. We want to celebrate as much as we can. Increase the pride, increase the enthusiasm at Heidi Trask High School. Much like Mr. Paquette spoke of, our academic awards, investing as much money as we can, supporting our students and showing off their academic prowess. We've spoken about the student tutoring program as well. And also we wanted to put some money aside for hardship for our students. Any student that may not be able to go on a field trip or may not be able to participate in an area, we want to make sure we have money set aside for that, for those emergency activities. And then also to celebrate more, our PBS program, another $700 there, just to make sure that we can have that extra seed money when we need it. And then we want to go into our savings. The goal is to have something to start the next year with. We know inflation happens, things happen, things come up. We have to spend more money when time comes, but if we can save a minimum of $1,000 going into the next year, attached to what we may not spend, I think we'll be in good shape going to the next school year. Are there any questions about the line items that you will see attached to our budget?
Mr. Hudson,
Yes, sir.
you said you were paying for some tutoring out of it. Did that happen this past year as well?
Last school year, we were able to use our ESSER funds for our tutors.
So this will replace,
So we still want to keep that program going. And we noticed that we do have some room in our budget to hopefully take care of it. So we're going to do our best to fund it ourselves.
okay.
Mr. Hudson, just to clarify, when you mentioned your $40 parking, what you're meaning by that is at the beginning of the school year, the full $50, you'll have some left over that'll be prorated
Yes.
for when students become of age to drive to school. Is that what you meant by that? Absolutely. Okay, very good. As the school year goes, price ticket reduces on that.
I forgot to ask our principal from Pender High School, so he can just, if he wants to speak from the audience, he can. Have you already started selling, I assume the answer is yes, but have you already started selling these parking passes for this year?
First opportunity is going to be doing senior transition. We'll open up again during open house. We'll try to get as many as we can sold before the school year starts
Okay,
and during that first month.
okay. I'm sure they're eager, people want to get their,
Absolutely.
Okay, does Heidi Trask and Pender High have spare parking spaces usually
Usually,
after
yes,
you've
ma'am.
sold, after the sale is complete?
Usually, yes, ma'am, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Mr. President, does Heidi Trask and Pender High also have a SRO?
You have a SRO?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Hall, board members, Dr. Breedlove, Dr. Taylor, it's good to be with you. My name is Michael Sasser, the principal at Topsail High. Certainly humbled to be here and be a part of your community. The saying would go, I'm drinking water through the fire hose. I'm quickly learning and getting caught up to speed. There is certainly a lot of demand and need with our parking at Topsail High School, but sometimes with great demand comes great benefit. And so we are weighing our options and certainly coming before you today to talk about what we think are good uses for our budget. Broken into two halves. The first half is really operations and maintenance. Certainly with a high traffic area, we think it's vital for the safety of our students to be able to provide that oversight through a parking attendant. And just wear and tear with a number of cars in traffic, important to make sure we are considering resurfacing or needs that we have currently expanding to be able to satisfy our customers. The second half of our budget really starts to go into that experiential learning. We recognize these are dollars paid for by students, so putting them back into student learning and opportunity. The first is with our science labs and consumables. This directly impacts the education that we're able to provide and the activities that teachers are able to afford our students. And then lastly, students present needs, whether they're academic needs or safety needs. We have, due to certain transportation constrictions, students that come to campus and need to come to campus earlier than when we open our doors. And so affording supervision for those students that supports families and what their transportation needs are is something that the school has provided in previous years. There have been ESSER dollars that have funded those, and so looking for some different sustainability funds for us to be able to continue to provide those services. And similar to my colleague, tutoring. That's an academic need that our students have greatly benefited from. Service that we've provided, similar to what was mentioned earlier, $500 for student tutoring, has greatly impacted our educational outcomes and something that we find great value in. So that expense is a little bit larger than what we have in our budget, but we are trying to find as many creative and alternative solutions so that we can ultimately get to the price point we need to be able to continue to offer those services. So that's a little bit about what we are or how we are planning to spend those fees, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Since you're our newest principal, could you tell, where did you come from exactly? Where was your previous,
So previously I was
know
the
where you
superintendent
was,
of Edenton Chowan Schools.
So at your last superintendent's position with those schools, is this something similar that you had saw how they do their budget with parking fees?
Parking was not in high demand as it is in Topsail High School. So similar to my colleagues, we had many vacant spots remaining available.
I guess what I'm asking though, you sold spots.
We sold spots, yes, sir. I don't have that price off the top of my head.
What school was it?
That'd be John A. Holmes High School. Thank you.
Thank you guys for presenting the budgets as you've created, working with your teams. The actual recommendation is for the approval of the budgets, obviously. And you guys will have to deliberate on that and let us know our marching orders.
Did you, the other two principals, I apologize, but, have you started selling parking passes also at Topsail?
We began yesterday.
So it's already in, and I'm sure there's already a high demand.
Yes, sir, very much so.
Okay.
Who's, I understand why it's needed, but why didn't we get this before they started selling passes? Seems to me that they're selling passes the boards hasn't even approved the authority for staff to collect money for.
We were instructed to put it on actually we weren't instructed, but the policy says basically we have to present it to the board in enough time to be able to be approved.
Right, but they're already selling passes. My question is, why didn't this come before us in July? Dr. Breedlove, can you share any feedback on that? Are you still with us?
I am, yes, sir. My understanding is that they are to present how they're spending the money that they are collecting. $50 fee has been the common price for a parking pass for as long as most anybody remembers that I've asked, because I've asked how long has it been, and nobody knows any other price that I've spoken with. And so according to our policy, it is how are they spending money that they are collecting, whether they're selling 100 passes or 500 passes. Our requirement is to present to the board how they are spending their budget.
Okay. I understand that answer. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Breedlove, you also stated last year that you needed 1 year. You remember having that conversation?
I'm sorry, 1 year?
Yeah. You remember last year we stood in the hallway and we had a conversation about just give me 1 year, sir? You remember saying that?
1 year for what?
1 year for the $50.
I don't remember that, sorry, sir.
Convenient. Okay.
So the issue that I think I see here is it depends on how you look at this. It pays for some necessary things, especially tutoring. But
So they're paying.
you also see it as double taxation, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're paying for an SRO, and well, the sheriff's department's paying for the SRO, but they're still paying tax dollars for the SRO, right? And you're still paying for a parking lot attendant to go out there and wander around a parking lot looking for parking stickers. I'm not saying they don't need what they have. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to put the employee as he is, because he drives a bus. What else does he do, Mr. Taylor? You gave me a very vague answer in the email as far as what he does.
Parking attendant?
Parking lot attendant, he drives a bus. What else does he do?
I think he's a coach, isn't he?
He's a coach, okay.
Dr. Sasser, can you speak to that? And I'll be glad to jump in as well.
Sure. So the employee has multiple roles in the building, which includes bus driving, coaching, and serving the attendants, a classified employee.
So he's paid out of different pots. of money.
In what capacity does he serve the teachers or whatever he serves? What'd you say?
So he's serving in a coaching capacity.
Okay.
He's serving as a bus driver.
Okay.
All of which are supporting students, and as a parking lot attendant.
Yep. Oh, what is that all he does? Bus driver and a coach.
Yes, sir.
Does he do anything else during the day other than the parking lot? Okay.
I'll make a motion to, so this is where I'm thinking. This amount, if you add all three schools up together, is $50,000. That's 50% less than what we just approved for a strategic plan. The budget of the school system is what, Ms. Nellen, about 130 million from all sources, something like that, annually. So I agree with Mr. Springer on that. Charging the students a use fee basically to be able to use the parking lot. I think it makes more sense to just grant the principals what they've asked, give them the funding, and then just use regular funds and don't charge the students for it. So I'll make a motion to approve the budgets as they've been presented, but to not charge students anything and to just use whatever funding would be appropriate for those types of items. Maybe some of the items would be state or federal. You might be able to use some state or federal funds. Maybe some of them we have to use local funds. I don't know, because again, it's a variety of different things, different purposes. I understand the color of money matters. So that's the motion I'll make.
So would it still give the principal's discretion to do?
Yeah, it would be, so my motion is to approve exactly what we've been presented, but the only change is we're not asking these students to cough up another $50 to be able to register. They go through their normal registration process, and I understand because we've already embarked on this process, we may have to refund some students. And I'm sure this local school treasurers can figure that out. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And then, for example, this employee that's basically a coach and a bus driver is going to be now paid out of the pot of funds that every other bus driver and or coach gets paid out of, and all these other, things that we're spending money on. I think they're all valid. So I just think we shouldn't charge the students an extra $50 for it. For example, at Topsail, that parking attendant, he also serves Topsail Middle School, right? Mr. Sasser?
Supports the entire campus, as I
Right.
understand it.
So, why should the Topsail High School students have to pay for that? Are we going to try and segregate that, and say, well, he works maybe 20% of the time for Topsail Middle, and so we're not going to charge, I think it just makes sense to not make the students cough up an extra $50.
I do want to let the board know, though, while it's student funded and the budgets are presented, that allows flexibility for the schools to spend money on things that we wouldn't be allowed to use state or local funds, or state or federal funds. We do have some flexibility in local, so some of these items would have to be outside of what our normal thing to be used for. State and federal would not be allowed to pay for.
Right. Yeah, I understand that the variety of different things that have been proposed are going to be in all three buckets, state, federal, and local. Thank you for clarifying.
I've not had any emails in the 2 terms on this board. It's been $50, and I've not had any parent. I'm not saying there's not any, but I personally have not had anyone contact me with concerns about the $50. In fact, I've had some that were not able to get a parking pass over at Topsail and were saying, and had reached out to me and said, what if I were to give X amount of dollars? I can't even remember what it was because it's been several years ago. But so what if I were to give this amount of money? And I told them I couldn't get involved in that. That was something they'd have to be put, I guess, on a waiting list. Is that right? If you sell out all your...
Currently, that's the process, yes, sir.
Okay, so I have y'all as a board, I mean, are y'all being, flooded with people that are saying $50?
The only comment that I've had is from a parent who apparently is renting a parking space over at the storage facility adjacent to the high school. I don't know how many spots are being rented over there, but I do know that, like I said, parking is at a premium at Topsail High. And honestly, I don't see it as people are being double taxed. I see it as we have a fee, a parking fee, that the students pay if they want to park there. It's a voluntary situation. It's not
It's privileged.
a fee. It's a fee, not a tax. So, as I've said before, I think it kind of evens out that Topsail has the largest parking lot. I don't see a problem with charging the fee and having a parking attendant over there to take care of the largest parking lot for any high school in Pender County. So if the other schools were that large and having problems in the parking lot that they needed to have someone additional out there, then I could see it. And I would be the first person to say, hey, let's do this. But they don't.
One of the needs that we have at Topsail High School that hasn't been brought up yet is the amount of transient population between taking classes on Topsail High School campus and then leaving to go to Surf City and coming back. So the
Mr.
actual
Taylor,
back
so
and
I was
forth.
going to mention that. So Dr. Sasser, I was going to ask you, or Mr. Sasser, does Dr. or Mr.?
Doctor.
Thank you, sir. I'll give you the credit that you've earned. One of the things I was going to ask was, so for those students that are dual enrolled, right, they're taking classes at the high school and they're also taking classes at Cape Fear Community College, it's not really a privilege for them, right? I mean, I wouldn't call it a privilege. I would say they're taking advantage of the educational opportunities at Cape Fear Community College, and they really need a parking spot to be able to transit themselves back and forth if their parents, for example, have to work back and forth to campus to avail themselves of that educational opportunity. Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
And that's probably why in your process you prioritize those students over others that, for example, are not dual enrolled, right?
Well, we are currently working to revisit our process to ensure that we are equitable. I think some certain challenges in our process that presented themselves as I've unpacked our process, this namely being one of them.
Right.
And I think we've got to truly consider what repercussions, if you do prioritize educational opportunity versus a student who has maximized the rigor within what the high school affords, should they not be afforded a parking pass? Some quick data that I pulled just for the board to consider. We have about 500 students who are dually enrolled. I currently have 532 spaces. So if I prioritize a dually enrolled student, almost all of my parking spaces would be given to those students who are taking advantage of that rigorous opportunity at the community college. That only leaves 32 other juniors or seniors left for parking, and I'm weighing how we best resolve what I think is a conflict. That's one of those reasons that parking is of high demand. We're considering with transportation, how do we provide shuttles to the Surf City campus to alleviate some of that? But this is all in my learning lesson and drinking water through the fire hose. You know, how do we come up with a process that best suits all of the needs and the complexities with our different programs and transportation situations?
So the shuttle, I think, is a great idea, by the way, and I'm glad that you brought that up, just because I think you're thinking creatively, so that's great. My point is, from the policy formulation standpoint, I think this body's obligation is not to formulate policy based on the affluent family who can easily cough up the $50, and it doesn't matter to them, right? That's not who I'm going to formulate policy around. I'm going to formulate the policy around someone who's trying to make ends meet. If you know, $50 is either putting money in gas in the gas tank this week or not, and they also want to be able to go to Cape Fear Community College, and I've had several parents reach out to me that are in that situation. And again, I'm not trying to formulate this specific policy around maybe even the majority that, you know, money is not an issue for them, okay? I'm trying to formulate to make sure the policy to make sure that the individuals that are in that financial situation that can't, you know, afford that extra $50, that they can do it. Again, I'm not saying that any of the principals here shouldn't get exactly what you've asked for. The question is how to fund it. Do we make the students cough up an extra $50 each, or do we just pay for it out of local, federal, and state funds that we've already got out of a $130 million budget for the school system?
And Mr. Cordero, I would be 100% in agreement with what you just said. If I, in my 6 years of being up here, had actually had just one parent send me an email, call me, or text me and say, Beth, I cannot afford that $50 parking fee.
What if the principals, if y'all, I know some are newer than others, but if a person were to come and say that they couldn't afford this parking fee, is there a plan in place? I mean, I know some of you've got cushion money. I mean, is there like a committee from your local school that reviews that request to see if it's a reduced amount or if the waiver, or if it's passed? I mean, is there anything like that in place now? And anyone can speak to it.
Yeah, so what you just described is a reality. So we had in this last year 3 individuals who were facing financial hardship. Of course, we did have a team put together that included our social worker and our counselor too, to really work with the parent beyond the parking fee, right? So if that's the piece, there's probably a lot more behind that. And our community and schools group as well stepped in those situations. So in that case, as principal, we did waive the fee. We charged those families nothing. I have 3 cases like that we did interact with.
So I'll amend my motion. I'll say for those that qualify for the reduced lunch program, which I think is a good litmus test for what we're talking about here, that those individuals don't have to pay, and that the individuals that do not qualify for out of income for the reduced lunch program, then they have to pay full price. And then the balance for those maybe, you know, however many at your school, we would have to make that up out of local funds. So I'll amend that motion.
The one, you didn't ask my opinion.
What's that?
But
no, please give it to us. That's why you're
so
there. Absolutely.
I don't know what impacts this have. We have smart people around here. For those schools like mine, and I'm not sure if Tony, you would know this, but the community eligibility provision, which grants then a school who's saturated in a low wealth income, like all students receiving free and reduced lunch. What we've seen as an impact of that is a astronomical decline in those who actually apply. So you can still put in a free and reduced lunch. But what you've said is still, we just have to make sure that's a part of our process to meet what I think I heard you saying.
Because right now, we're not having applications for
Correct.
free and reduced lunch because there's already something in place.
Which covers the entirety of the school.
And that you're saying Pender High is in that.
We
is in
are,
that
yeah.
bucket.
And I
It
don't,
is.
some number of schools I think we have. I'm not sure about Tony. Tony is as well.
Okay. Got it.
And so the whole school essentially gets a blanket
Yeah.
covering
Got it.
versus 10 years ago where it was individually transaction. Sorry to step in, but I just
No,
want to
it
make sure that
makes
was.
sense. We could, I might use some other, we don't want to collect unnecessary information, but are you
Correct.
confident that when we consider maybe other social benefits, whether it's the
Absolutely.
supplemental
I mean,
nutrition
that's
assistance
essentially
program or
what the
whatever the case
process was.
that
Is
we
there
could-
kind of a verifiable, without prodding, but
Right.
a demonstrated financial hardship, which has been the litmus test we've used as well with the individuals who couldn't attend the military ball for our OTC without some support. That same kind of situations. And families have, to my experience, and when you're, been vulnerable enough to allow us into their world and seek some assistance. And I think this community seems to have a spirit where we've done so. I use the word freely because there is fun, but we want every student to participate in every possible adventure. So we have gotten into that. I don't know if you have, Tony, but we've had a few cases, 3 in the last year, where that was the right thing to do, and we did it. And I think we would continue to do that. But again, I don't know if that's necessarily in policy or against it, but it was the.
Hudson, how many of you had roughly, do you know, if you don't, I'm not putting you on the spot, but is it less than 10 or?
It's just less than 10, but we've already budgeted in our plan
For that.
type situations, whether it be parking lot, field trip, whatever the case may be. So we already have a budget for those type situations.
Dr. Sasser, are you aware maybe of how many that would be in your bucket?
No, sir.
Okay. Obviously, your enrollment is much larger. So I would assume that the increase in, people that might fall into that bucket would be. So yeah, I mean, I'll amend my motion to have, basically develop some policy to allow the students that are in true financial hardship to be able to benefit from the parking without having to pay.
And I guess the other question I would have when we're talking about this is if you eliminate the fee completely, then are you just going to do a random selection of who gets these passes first? I mean, how's that going to be? I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces in this, I think, because then, of course, somebody's going to come back and say, well, I was left out, I should have gotten it, that kind of thing, because if we're, especially at Topsail, has a limited amount of spaces, so.
I would bring our attention to policy 4600 student fees. There is a provision already in there. Any fees imposed will be waived or reduced for students who demonstrate economic hardship. So that policy exists already. We can make it specific to whatever fees we have, but there's a policy out there that supports that.
Well, if that's the case, I think that, in my opinion, there's a motion on the floor. There's not a second right now. I think we're just discussing, but if that's the case, then maybe just public, information, maybe people don't know, even though they're given the, handbook, but still, maybe they don't understand that there are things in place for them, maybe an informational campaign, for individuals.
Or, I mean, there's a registration form, right, that's required by everybody. So maybe make sure that it's on that form. If you have a financial hardship, you can benefit from free parking, or, we can waive the fee based on certain criteria. I think disclosing that up front, if it's not already disclosed, might.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah. Is it already disclosed, gentlemen? You're just asking. It's okay. You don't have to have an answer now. But, obviously a lot of people, if they see it, they might ask. Whereas if they don't see it, then they'll just maybe just not even apply because, hey, little Johnny, I don't have $50. Sorry, not this year type thing.
I've got a question for everybody too. Does anybody have any concerns about, let's say down the road, if we do away with the fee and it comes from, county, federal, or state money? What if a future school board decided, all right, we can't afford this anymore? Because, things can get that tight. I mean, this system has laid off hundreds of people before, not any time recently, but it's happened. Should it, if we were to go that route, should it be in there where it would automatically revert back to, okay, you've got to charge a fee to make up for this money or something of that nature? But of course, a future board could change that, but.
Yeah, I don't know how we could, Mr. Chairman, even not knowing who's going to be on the board in the future, how we could determine anything like that.
Yeah, I think from a legal standpoint, the binding future boards is something, I mean, you can be aspirational, but outside of that, it's not going to particularly.
I will say that I've been here since 2016, and we have never voted on, as a board, any kind of a local school budget for something local like this. So with that in mind, that tells me that someone in the central office in finance could be making a budget proposal for the next year and could just decide, well, we'll just wipe this money out, period. And it could pass through here and nobody ever know it. So how do you safeguard against that? Not picking on you, I'm just saying it could happen.
I understand.
So, I mean, $50,000 is nothing in the grand scheme of things.
Well, that's why I think we should just get, not charge the students. But again, I'll make clear that I've amended my motion so that way we can charge the fee and the students will pay it, but that anybody who has financial hardship would not have to pay it. So that's kind of where we are now.
But I think that the policy already states that, correct?
Right. Maybe it was just underscoring
I
our,
think saying just make sure it's.
our direction to staff to make sure that the application or whatever, that's communicated clearly to our stakeholders.
Well, I mean, it's, you've got other schools that are benefiting from something that one school is paying for. There's a little bit of an issue with that too, but, I mean, I don't think anybody here's got a problem with making it free. I think the bigger problem is they're just worried about how does this, ensuring that this funding stays here to pay for an attendant and tutoring and, whatever. I think that's the bigger issue. Am I right about that?
I don't think we're prepared to have that conversation right now with, the limited amount of information with where the money's gonna come from, that, those resources, so. I think just we need to, like Mr. Cordero said, make sure that it's known that there is a policy in place to help those that if the item is to be reduced or even made free at that time, so. And if it is made free, at least charge what the, what is it, $1.25, $2 for how much it actually costs for that little placard. I mean, get your money back for the placard, at least.
Well, it's still not a bad idea with the cost of everything just being out of control and trying to save everybody $50, but there's good points to both sides. I mean,
Well, and $50, Mr. Chairman, you're right, is, if it's been, I've always known it to be $50. No one has known a time it wasn't $50, so, $50 15 years ago compared to $50 a day, we've actually, probably the price of it's devalued then. Cause I know anytime I go to the supermarket, the cost of something, it's not stayed the same by no means, so.
well,
I'm not asking for an increase.
if we were to do away with the fee, is there a way that it could be revisited every year to make sure that the funding is still available? Is there a way to do that?
Yes, sir. I would almost insist on that happening because as budgets shrink and they continue to do so, you are correct. It could have to be eliminated from a local, state, or federal budget. Some of the things that have been asked, because it is a priority based on, what is our priority with the limited funds that we have.
It also sounds like one of the major concerns by some of the board is that the parking attendant at Topsail High School, and if that's the concern, then I would say that would need to be addressed maybe at a later time, that we need to just as a board look at that particular position, the details, the job responsibilities, all of that goes into that. And then if the board decides to move or make an action on that particular position, then let them do so at that time. But as for parking fees budget, I'll make a motion to approve the parking fee budget with the added that we clarify the policy about the those who are in budget hardship. I don't know the policy number off the top of my head, but whatever that is, prove it for this year. Then if the board down the road wants to look at that particular position, they can do so. But for now, these principals can leave knowing that it's been approved.
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Smith has made a motion, Mr. Cordero has made a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous. Thank you. 8.3, addressing growth. Who's got that on there?
I think that's me.
Yeah.
Oh, you,
If they've got to go to their school, I know there's a storm and everything's
Right.
happening out there. As for me,
before you go, Dr. Sasser, I think this is the first time most of us have met you, so we appreciate you coming, and have anything else you'd like to tell us? Welcome to.
Again, it's an honor and it's been a pleasure. I've learned such wonderful things about our school and our community, and so just to be able to serve means the world to me, so I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
All right, we already know the other two, so y'all don't have to talk to us.
I'm in good company, right?
Especially one that I think went to school here on top of all this, so. All right,
Take care. Be safe, everybody. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I think the next one, I'll just,
Resolution that you,
everybody's got in front of them an updated copy of, I think, what appeared in the agenda packet initially. I won't read the whole thing, but I've been analyzing some of the planning board meeting minutes and its activities, the Pender County Planning Board, and I just grow ever increasingly concerned every day with the number of additional residential projects that are being approved in the Topsail area. And so, again, I'll just read a couple of things. So the projected total enrollment is 5,334 students in the K-8 cohort for the year that the K-8 is supposed to open, versus a total capacity of 4,774 students. So that's 5,300 versus 4,800 students. 5,300 students enrolled versus 4,800 student capacity, and that's after the K-8's already opened in the Topsail area. And then according to the study as well, the projected enrollment for the high school cohort is 2,400 students, and the current capacity of Topsail High School is 1,400 students. Based on the data that I analyzed from the planning board public documents, the number of total residential units that's approved for construction but not yet built in the Topsail area exceeds 7,500 units. And even at a 2.11, which I think is the industry standard, 2.11 residents per unit, that's 17,000 additional residents that we're expecting in the Topsail area alone. And that assumes no other approved additional residential units. So my desire with this is to try to initiate some type of meaningful collaboration between this body, the planning board, and the Pender County Board of Commissioners to develop a plan for how we are going to deal with the additional drain on our resources for the additional students that this additional development will generate. And so the updated copies got essentially one main recommendation, which is to request that the Board of County Commissioners establish a joint committee that is consisting of members of the Board of County Commissioners and this body, the Board of Education, and then the Planning Board, and then to have that board meet within the next month, and then to essentially put on hold any additional approvals of high-density development in that interim time period. I do want to make clear that anything that is approved by right, so this is not like a moratorium or anything like that, right? So there are certain developments that are not high density, like not an apartment building, for example. You know, if you're going to build a new home on a lot that you own, there's nothing that the county can do to prevent you from doing that, right? So that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about prohibiting by right development. What we are talking about is when it comes to large apartment buildings and other, you know, in Section 8 housing, other similar high density developments, that we need to put a pause on those until we can come up with some concrete plans for how the school system is going to meet the needs that are generated by those additional developments. The last thing I'll say is I think my desire to do this is rooted foremost, I think, in a lack of communication. I'll use one specific example. I don't think this, and I wasn't, and anybody else correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this board was informed, for example, that land had been purchased and the site had been chosen for the new K-8 school before the county bought the land or signed a contract to buy the land. That is, I think, a lack of communication. I think a work group like this, where you've got members of the planning board and the school board and the Board of County Commissioners working together to communicate proactively, should discuss these things before major decisions like that are made. And so that's the desire behind this, because I fear for the students in their ability to have adequate facilities for a basic public education if we don't start talking to each other before we make these decisions to build new apartment buildings and other high density developments. So I'll stop with that.
I concur with what you're saying, Mr. Cordero, someone that's been here a few years longer, I think, than what you might have lived here. I've seen it in my short period of time, and I know Don and Beth are were born and raised here in Pender County, but just in my time here, the overreach of growth that is, I don't see any end to it. And I do feel like it's good to start having these conversations as these boards come together, the planning board, the commissioners, the school board, so that way the public sees that we're not just rubber stamping everything that comes in, and that we are required by state statute that if a child's here, we are required, I believe, Mr. McPherson, to give them a public education. So if that's the case, and we do not have any tax and authority, then we do need to have these conversations. So I do feel like this is something that we need to really pursue as a team, working together for what's best for Pender County.
And what I will say is that I agree with you 100%, and the spirit of this resolution, I do agree with. It's been something that I've been thinking about for a while. Actually, I ran into a planning board member in Walmart a few months ago, and he and I had a conversation pretty similar to what's in here. I will also add that although this is talking about the growth in the topsoil area, that growth is making its way over here to the west side. And for as many, I don't know if it's as many, I haven't counted up how many units that are coming in over on the west side of the Cape Fear here, but I would say that it's comparable. And I wouldn't mind seeing a meeting between the two boards and also have planning come in. I've got lots of questions.
I like the committee
So-
too. I just wish we could have at least one joint meeting of both, the full board of both sides.
I agree with that.
Plus planning.
I agree with that. I think the
That's what this is calling
preliminary
for.
meeting should be with both full boards and with planning, representatives of planning, to answer everyone's questions. And then maybe we could slip into this into the committee. But I think everybody should have the opportunity to ask questions.
I agree with that.
And I think that, Mr. Cudere, if I'm wrong, what the nature of this is before we go into the meeting with them, is that they know what our concerns, as a school board, the concerns that we have. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's not just walking in a meeting, catching them off guard.
Right. And then, certainly I think with this, if we were to transmit it to them, that we would include the full study that we were presented, I believe, in April, that shows all the capacities of each school, and what it's projected to be by year.
Ms. Cordero, would you be opposed to taking out the verbiage for the two and just have the committees from each board?
No, I would not oppose that at all.
Okay.
I think, I was thinking more along the lines of, I understand everybody's busy and I wouldn't want to require everybody, on all the boards, but certainly I think I understand the opposite perspective of it might be interpreted as limiting a person's opportunity to ask questions. And so, yeah, I would certainly, if I were to make a motion, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as it's written with the one change of changing, 3 members of the BOC and 2 members of the Board of Education to just those boards. So not just a subset of members, but the entire Board of Commissioners, the entire Board of Education, the entire Planning Board. And of course, if any number of individuals are not interested or don't want to attend, then that's their own choice.
Was that a
Does that
motion?
answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It
Yes.
does. So I'll go ahead and, if there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and make the motion to include the verbiage that Ms. Cordero talked about,
Yep, and
to include the planning board, the Board of Commissioners,
You mean the full board, right?
yes.
the full board of the planning board, the county commissioners, as well as the school board as one body to meet within 30 days of receipt of this
It has to be
resolution.
I mean, we've had joint meetings before never had one with planning, but we've had them with the commissioners and,
Yeah, just be noticed as a regular special
yeah,
meeting.
and we just,
And also, in that amendment, I would like to say that it should be streamed public.
I agree with that. I mean, however, we and the county commissioners normally would stream their meetings, so, whatever the normal process is they use, I would agree with that.
then I think after that, we need to maintain a committee,
I agree.
just,
And I would say, you know, this committee could be a standing committee, and this, the resolution wasn't written in such a way to restrict or mandate a certain schedule, but my recommendation would be, and of course, we can figure this out behind the scenes, that this committee, this special committee of the three bodies would meet at least quarterly, you know, once every 3 months.
Yeah.
I think, you know, that would be reasonable.
Mr. McPherson, I have a legal question. By sending this to the commissioners and the planning board, there's no legal, the only thing that this is doing is asking for this meeting, but there's no legal binding. I mean, we cannot force them to
Yeah.
do something. It's just to let them know what our concerns are and asking for this meeting and moving forward. Is that right?
That's exactly right, Mr. Smith. This is a, hey, here are our concerns. We would like to have a joint meeting to discuss those concerns. And as publicly elected officials, they can choose, and I will say as good partners, generally speaking. I mean, they will be, I don't see a reason why they wouldn't accept this invitation.
Is there, and I understand, is that a motion on the floor and a second?
Yes, sir.
I have a
Between
recording.
myself and Mr. Springer, the chair can decide who to.
I'll call for a
first.
question then. Okay.
who made the motion? It's been.
I made the
Do
motion.
Mr. Springer, and I'll second.
All right, so
Can we
Mr.
repeat the motion one more time, please?
You got it?
Go ahead, sir.
Yep. All right, it's a motion to approve the resolution as written with the substitution of a joint meeting between the full Board of County Commissioners, Board of Education, and Planning Board in Section 1, if that's right,
And to be streamed public.
and to be streamed public. And that was seconded by Mr. Cordero,
Yes, sir.
made by Mr. Springer.
Would you like to put language in about having, after that, having quarterly committee meetings?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll just let the board.
I think we should decide during that meeting.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I have to be honest, I have to be honest, at first, whenever I saw a resolution, I was a little hesitant because I thought, well, we don't really, we want to maintain a good working relationship with the county commissioners, but, after reading through it and seeing the changes that have been made to it, I really, like I said, I don't think the language is too aggressive. I think they're gonna definitely understand where we're coming from when we come over, so
If we
yeah.
have a joint
I'm-
meeting, they'll.
Yeah, and I like the idea of a full joint meeting, so,
But
Yeah, they'll be able-
it's mainly to help people understand too that we take these issues seriously, and we want the public to know that we're dedicating the effort to addressing the concerns.
understood,
Everybody can
There's a question on the floor.
say what they want to say, so.
yes.
All right, we've had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 And that's unanimous. Thank you. Surplus.
Cord.
Good afternoon. This is a request consideration for declaration of surplus. There are 4 vehicles listed here, 1 activity bus, 1 fleet vehicle, and 2 driver's ed vehicles. Mr. Overton and Transportation Department are working on more, but this is the first 4 that we would like to request declaration of surplus so we can move to putting it on gov deals and receive bids.
I make a motion to approve the declaration of surplus as the items or the vehicles as presented.
All right, have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, 8.5, which is the
6.3.
first read policy 4150 and 4150R.
Yes, sir. So this would be first read. It is moved to action, obviously. So we would have to, with Mr. McPherson's support, if you want to take a vote on this, we have a couple policies. But essentially what we've done is we've included, this is the school assignment policy. Students who are in a terminal grade, meaning fifth grade, moving to a 5th grade or a 8th grade or a senior year, be allowed to stay in the school they were in if the family moves to another building or another home in our current Pender County district. In other words, they would move, say they move from Topsail High School to Heidi Trask catchment area. But if they're in that, moving up to the 12th grade year, they're allowed to stay without having to go through the waiver process and all that kind of stuff. We've done that in the past. Principals have made that decision. When I was a principal, I made that decision a couple of times. It helps the student finish their career out at the school they've been at for 3, 4, 5+ years. The other addition to that is during the request for reassignment. During the spring of the current year, reassignment requests will be accepted for the following year. We're requesting that only those schools at 95% capacity or below be listed as possible transfer sites. We have a lot of schools that are over 95% capacity, as you guys have just discussed. So eliminating that as an option, I think some families feel like the request that goes out, even though our policy states that we're not going to allow that transfer, is confusing to families. So adding that provision in seems to make sense and kind of clean that policy up to represent current practice. Happy to take any questions if you guys have them.
I make a motion to approve.
Second motion.
So really quick before we do that, we're going to need to do a motion to suspend the
I
application.
make a motion to suspend policy 2450.
Second.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. And we also have a motion and a second on the policy already on the floor, right? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
All right, final action item of the day. This is policy 3230. Same thing applies for this in terms of the waiving of the policy. So board meeting agenda, it would change. We've added in, the practice has been we submit the board packet to the board members and then to the public 4 days prior to the meeting. And then the agenda we made public to the actual community at least 48 hours prior to the meeting. So it kind of cleans up a little bit of that. It also, at the beginning of the meeting, during the approval of the agenda, an offer to add an item for consideration not currently on the agenda be added to the agenda. The item must be added by unanimous consent of the board. It used to say it didn't have any kind of adoption on that other than approval of the board agenda. And then after the board meeting is started, something can be added to the agenda with a 2/3 vote that was recommended for change by unanimous vote of board members present. So I think that captures kind of the highlights of what the policy is revised to state at this moment. Happy to take any questions if you would like.
But if something were to fail to be added by a unanimous vote, what would then stop 2/3 from calling a special meeting to deal with it the next day?
Nothing. Nothing. Yeah.
What was the purpose of initiating this?
I initiated it.
Okay.
The reason why I initiated it is because I've had several people in the last 6 months. I don't have a number, Mr. Dare, but I've had several have reached to me, and just like how you're very good about wanting to make sure about having all the documents out and for the public to see. One thing that was said to me by one person I know in particular that said to me that what stops him and they bring anything they want to? Somebody make a motion, change the agenda. We didn't have time to see anything as a public. One example was this past month when we added the EV bus and when we've added other stuff on there and it wasn't publicized that it was going to be on the agenda. So what this does is actually get the public to be more involved and know what's happening. And like Chairman Hall said, if it's something that needs to be done and if it's not unanimous, there's nothing stopping the board to call a meeting to do this. But at least then the public knows in advance that there's something going to happen. And then that way they have an opportunity to come. I know there's other boards, county commissioners, I think that this is their policy. And I'm sure there's other boards that have similar policies to this. I've not gone around and researched. I know the county commissioners is like that, but, that's why I'm doing this, is because that way there's nothing that can last minute be brought up, that the public has not had opportunity to say, why is this on there? And then they can come for public comment that night.
Just to piggyback off Mr. Hall's question, nothing would prevent a special meeting from being called by 2/3. Nothing would prevent from that to be added to the next agenda, whether that's a special meeting or a regular meeting as well down the road.
Current board policy for a special meeting is majority.
Yes.
Right. You think you just said 2/3. I just wanted to correct that.
Sure
Maybe I
it's not.
misheard you.
It is 2/3, isn't it?
I looked it up, actually. Hold on.
It may be a majority.
Mr. McPherson, can you double check me on that, please?
On the special, yeah.
Yes,
Give me
sir.
1 second, sir.
Thank you.
Because we've had things,
I was looking-
before y'all were here, there were things in the past that, there were one or two things that failed because it was supposed to be 2/3 according to a couple of former members that used to be here.
Well, I think the 2/3 that you mentioned earlier was if anything is going to be approved for an amendment to the agenda after the original agenda is approved, it would be 2/3. Is that right? Or it has to be?
That would be
Yes.
changed to unanimous as well.
But it's currently 2/3.
It's
though.
currently 2/3. And was the question about
We've broken our
calling
own
a
stuff.
meeting?
The question was for calling a special meeting. What percentage or?
So it's, and I'm looking at your board meetings policy, which is 2300 board meetings, section D, and it says that the superintendent in consultation with the chairperson or 2 members of the board may call a special meeting.
How many members?
Two members.
Okay.
And then you have to have a quorum after the called meeting.
Oh, that's right.
Correct.
You have to get, okay. Well, that,
That's
So they
right.
can call it, but
That's
so
right.
let me ask again to make sure I'm clear. The current policy says in order to add something to the agenda the day of the meeting, it must be 2/3, correct? Not a simple majority, 2/3. Then we have some invalid votes that have happened very recently.
I don't know. It's 2/3 after the meeting has started.
No, but, right, so I think, but his
Af-
question was, what's the required membership for, at the beginning of the meeting, amending the agenda to include something new? Is it a simple majority?
It's a majority of the members present.
Majority of the members
Where
present,
does the
right?
2/3 come from then?
That's after the.
That's
so-
after the meeting has
After the
started.
agenda
After it
has
starts.
been
So if I wanted to
After
amend the
it's
agenda to include something new at this point right now, that's when it would be 2/3.
Yeah.
Well, that means before anyone's time here, except for Beth and Ken, it was something I wanted added one time, and it did not happen because they said, oh, we got to have a 2/3 vote, and that was at the beginning of the meeting. So that's illegal.
Yeah, I don't,
I hope all of the rest of ours have been correct.
yeah. So it's a simple majority until the meeting has already started, and then at that point, after, it's a 2/3 vote of the members present, okay? Not of the total membership. Does that make sense to everybody? Because those are two very different things.
Right, yes, yes.
I
And
just,
this is for a regular meeting as well, not a special meeting, and there's separate constraints in law for that.
Right.
I understand, Mr. Smith, your desire. I completely understand where you're coming from. I guess I would solve the problem in a different way insofar as, at the end of the day, whatever measure is not going to pass as long as there's not a majority of the board that supports it. And all we're talking about, when you're adding something to the agenda, all you're doing is just allowing the board to discuss something. So the solution for me would be, well, we keep it a simple majority because it makes things more efficient where, okay, instead of having to call a special meeting tomorrow morning or the day after to discuss something, we'll just discuss it tonight. And if your opinion as an individual board member is that we shouldn't approve it because we need to allow the public more comment, then you can just state that and try to influence the other board members and or just vote no. So
and it would be with
I understand
any-
you would disagree with that.
I
but
would,
yeah.
because and then it would be the two sides of that would be our desire to get the public to know. And very few times do I think anyone, and I can't read the mind of anyone on this board, and I'm probably glad I can't, but I don't think anyone comes in here not knowing if they're gonna amend that agenda. Nothing just pops up. And if that's already in the works, that they come in here and make that, and the public doesn't know it, then this is a way to eliminate it. It's to make everything just as transparent as possible. And if it inconveniences us to have to call another meeting the next day or the following day, whenever, then so be it. But at least no one in the public can say that they came in here already working out private deals. You hear those kind of comments on the sidewalk. People say, oh, well, that was already a done deal. They've already made backroom deals. There's no such thing as that. If the public already knows, you've got to have 100%. Because I don't think there's very few times this board has ever agreed on something 100% of the time. Even previous boards that I've served on with previous board members were not 100%. So that's why I would like to do that, is to show the public that what we're trying to do. So it's to get that information out to them.
I think.
So in the spirit of that, go ahead, Mr. Springer, I'm sorry.
I think doing this, Mr. Smith, is going to impede progress. I'll give you a good example, and not to be in contrast to what you're saying, but we just got notified about a washing machine at Topsail High School. Now, I'm going to use this example to no disrespect to anybody, but it took almost a year to get a dishwasher. I don't know how long it's going to take to get a washing machine, but it took a year. Or almost a year, and Beth, maybe you can help me out, to get not one, but 2 dishwashers, because everything was so prolonged. Everything, we need to bring it up for discussion, and then we need to talk about it and stand around saying kumbaya. I don't know, but I do know that every time we prolong something, it pushes everything to the right just a little bit more, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. And so, if somebody brings something up to us via email, a phone call, a walk down the street on the sidewalk, it doesn't really matter if it needs to be brought up for discussion. I feel like, that's who we work for, and it needs to be brought up as soon as possible to get addressed.
Well, right now we have things being brought up at board meetings to add to the agenda that maybe 1 or 2 of the board members have already talked to each other. I don't know. But I know that there's been times I didn't know that something was going to be added. I didn't maybe tell you that I was going to add something to the agenda, which is fine. Yeah. If that's how the policy works. But that's why I'm asking for this amendment, so this requires. I also know that government, I didn't think this at one time, but there's a reason that government is slow. Because there are certain decisions that I have voted, and then when I got more information came back to me, I realized, wait a minute, that was the incorrect way to vote. And even in that same meeting, I had come back, and Beth's members of this years ago during certain things we were having, and Don, but I had said I apologize. Now with more information that has been presented to me, I have to amend my vote. And I'm willing to say if I mess up and do that, then I'm willing to say that. I'm not perfect. But what I do want to do is make it at least where the general public has the idea that when they walk in here, they can choose yes or no. And the backlash I got from the last meeting, that was just, that's more backlash I've ever gotten about any meeting. And so that's why this is one way that if something needs to be put on there, yeah, let them vote it up or down, but at least let the public know what's going to be put on the agenda. So in that, I make a motion to suspend policy 2450 and to approve the amendment of policy 3230.
I think it's 2330.
Or as noted.
Yes, sir.
A second.
All right, motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
I vote no.
What's next?
All right, is that all?
That's it.
Comments from board members, Mr. Springer?
Mr. Smith, I understand this is probably your last board meeting with, been on the school board, and I've enjoyed working with you. I'm sorry you caught a bunch of a wrath of comments about the electric buses. I can only imagine one side of that, it coming from one side, right? But I'm not going to get too much into that. But I've enjoyed working with you, and I enjoy talking to you on the phone and communicating, collaborating with the rest of the rest of us here too. So I wish you the best in your new endeavor there. If there's anything I can do, just don't hesitate to reach out.
All right, Ms. Burns.
Well, Mr. Smith, we have been up here together for 6 years now. I remember the day after I signed up to run, you called me and we spoke for the first time. And you asked me if I would work with you, and I said, yes, sir, I do believe I can work with you. And I think that nobody agrees on everything, but I think for the most part, you and I have been pretty much in agreement on most things. All I will say is thank you for your dedication for the past 6 years. And I not only had a good working relationship with you, but I count you as a friend, Ken. Best of luck to you on the county commissioners.
All right, Mr. Smith, I appreciate your service here, and I know that you're going to do good in your next role. And also, well, your role as a county commissioner and your next role that you'll be talking about pretty soon. That's all I have. Mr. Cordero?
Echo everybody else's statements. Thank you for your service to the residents of Pender County. It's greatly appreciated, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Smith?
Well, serving as mayor of Atkinson, I received a phone call from one of our fellow board members, Mr. Don Hall, asking me would I consider an open seat that was available to run for this position. And after much prayer and talking with my family, I decided to do so. The little thing that Mr. Hall didn't realize is that when I graduated high school in '93, I had told my mother, because the school board was there on the platform, I said, one day I'm going to be on the school board. And she thought that was funny at the time, but they made an impact on me and what their decision making. Little did I know all these years later that would actually happen. So I don't know if I need to thank Mr. Hall or say something different for encouraging me to run. But I do thank you, Don, for that. I would have to say first and foremost that I have to thank my wife, because if you serve on the school board, it's not just you, but it impacts your entire family. The meetings and the times that you're away from your family, it does have that. And so I thank my wife, and even during the birth of our son, Lincoln, for my need to have perfect attendance. I even was in a board meeting virtually there at the hospital while my wife was giving birth to our son. Now, it wasn't during the actual birthing process, but while we were there in the hospital, and all that was during COVID lockdowns, we were there in the hospital and participated because I knew that it was virtual or vital for me to be part of this school system and make decisions for those, not only my district, but the county. And I do think my two kids that this has impacted, the times I've had to leave home and my son couldn't understand why, or come home and be disappointed in the way things had turned out, or be happy about the way things are turned out. Many times a 4-year-old can pick up on that. And so, and also my daughter who graduates from Pender High School, very proud of that this December, early graduation. I want to thank also the staff. They've always made me feel welcome. And it was comical when I first got on the board. They thought, well, what is his agenda coming in here to visit? What is he trying to find wrong? And then after these past 6 years, I get phone calls saying, you hadn't been in a few weeks. Where are you? You know, where they understand I'm not there to find anything wrong. I was always there to encourage them. I want to thank also my fellow board members for electing me to serve one term as a vice chair, and also a great honor to serve this board as a chair for one term as well. I want to thank also the central office for every time that I've called to question things, that they've made it just so simple that I could understand it and I could explain it to the public. I also want to say that I look forward to the days ahead, because I'm not leaving Pender County Schools. Even though I will no longer be a board member and making these decisions, I feel like I'll have even a greater impact because I'll be stepping into the classroom. That is why I'm having to resign now, is because at the new school year, I'll be starting as an employee in Pender County Schools teaching middle school CTE. And so keep me in your prayers with that. I want to leave this board with this statement. The best is still yet to come for Pender County Schools. I firmly believe it, regardless of who is in this chair making these decisions. This has never been my seat. This has always been the seat of the people. And I realize, as humble as I can, that they allow me to fill this role. And that, to the citizens, if I didn't vote the way you wanted me to, I'm sorry. But I will tell you this, at the end of the day, I had to vote in certain ways so that I could sleep at night and know that I did the right thing for the greater good of our school system. God bless you, and may God bless Pender County Schools.
All right, thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. McPherson, do you have anything?
Just very quickly, Mr. Smith, it's been an honor serving as on this board. You have been in a lot of tight spots. It's been an opportunity to work with you and to come alongside this board and be your counsel. I understand whenever you're sitting in the chair seat, you talk to me a little bit more often than you do now. But just know I appreciate you, and I look forward to your future service on the Board of County Commissioners, and congratulate you on your new role, and honestly, one of the highest callings for someone to be a teacher. So with that ends my comments, Mr. Chair.
All right. Dr. Breedlove, do you have anything?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, thank you very much for your service in Pender County Schools as a Board of Education member, as the Vice Chair, and certainly my time with you as Chairperson. It is I would say this to anybody out there out on the board, it's a very tough job, and many times it's a thankless job. Please know, though, that you made a positive difference in Pender County Schools. In the just over a year and a half that I've been working with you, my time with you, it's been very clear that you are a person of honor and integrity, and it's been a pleasure to work under your leadership. Congratulations. I wish you much success, not only as a county commissioner, but most importantly, in my eyes, as an educator in a great school system of Pender County Schools. Congratulations, sir. I also want to thank the Board of Education for your work to support the updated policy around bullying. It is no secret that school systems across the nation have been dealing with an uptick in bullying, and especially with the advancement of social media. Pender County Schools is no different. Each year, the school and the district-based staff are involved in countless numbers of incidents related to bullying. As you may know, Stokes County lost a student through suicide related to bullying a few years ago. No parent and no school system should ever have to endure such tragedy. I spoke with their superintendent, Dr. Rice, and he described the action that the district took as a result of that loss of life. Much of our new policy and the consequences associated with the policy are modeled after the ones that Stokes created. Pender County Schools is an academic institution, first and foremost, and no student attending our schools should ever feel anything other than supported and encourage each and every day that they come inside of our school system. And so this new policy is an attempt to reduce the bullying in Pender County schools. And so with that, I want to say thank you to the board for putting this in place. It is something that I believe will be well received by all in Pender County schools. Just a couple of just reminders. On top of this, on August 27th at 9:30, we do have our committee of the whole. And then also Tuesday, September 10th, we have a regular Board of Education meeting. Tuesday, September 24th, once again, a committee of the whole is scheduled. And Tuesday, October the 8th, we have a regular Board of Education meeting. As far as school-related events coming up, on Monday, August 12th, beginning teacher orientation at Heidi Trask High School. Discussions will include why I teach, vision, mission, policy, student services, licensure, testing, our social work, and a lot more good stuff that we will share with our beginning teachers. On Thursday, August 15th, it's curriculum night at Penderley School. We also have Tuesday, August 20th. This is our countywide conference day. This is our kickoff to the school year. All board members are invited to that day. And once again, it's at Heidi Trask High School, and festivities will begin at 8 o'clock with official kickoff at 8:30. Wednesday, August 21st, our middle school's open houses across the district from 4 to 6 p.m. And Thursday, August 22nd, our elementary and high school open houses. You will see that we were able to schedule those because we have started cluster meetings. That's really attendance zone meetings between elementary, middle, and high school and the feeder patterns. And principals have worked out schedules that really try and help avoid any conflicts for parents that may have students in multiple schools. And so I want to commend our principals and the work that they've done to try and schedule those. And then lastly, first day of school coming up, August 26th, on Monday, for all traditional Pender County schools. And that's going to be an exciting day for all of us. So at this time, board chair, board members, this concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Breedlove. We have a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chair, before you do that, I forgot, I apologize. I was to present Ms. Gardner, and I had told Dr. Breedlove about this already at the event at Heidi Trask for the kickoff. There are 2 gift certificates that are being donated, and I wanted to make that public, that $140 gift card for one of our teachers or staff members to Harbor Salon and Spa. And so that's $140 that they'll have an opportunity to have. And I know there's other prizes that they're doing at Heidi Trask for that. The other one that that we're donating is Castle Bay Golf Course, 4 rounds of golf with the cart, the golf balls. And so I'm personally donating these 2 gift cards as my sign of appreciation to our staff. And so I wanted to give that to Ms. Gardner so that can be given out, raffled off at the event. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
I move that the board enter into closed session, subject to advice from the attorney pursuant to NC General Statute 143-318.11A1 and A6 to prevent the disclosure of confidential personnel information under GS 115C-319 and to consider matters relating to personnel matters. The board will also enter into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A3 to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege.
I second the motion.
All right, Ms. Burns has made a motion. Mr. Smith has seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And no opposed. Thank you. And we are in closed session.
Make a motion to come out of closed session.
All right, Mr. Smith's made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that's unanimous.
I make a motion to approve the HR report.
All right, Mr. Smith's made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's my honor to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
All right, Mr. Smith's made a motion. Do we have a second?
It's my honor to second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.